Hi, everyone, and welcome to Spirit Matters, your daily Bhakti Center podcast, where we talk about spiritual issues and topics from a practical point of view and how they manifest and how we practice them in our daily lives. And I am here with my co-host, Achyuta Gopi. Our tri-host, Dayal Guranga, is not with us today, but hopefully he will be here soon. And yeah, so grateful for all of you tuning in. Achyuta, how are you doing this morning?
I'm good. We're here. We're humid.
We're humid. We're sticky.
It's exactly how I feel this morning. A little humid.
A little humid, yeah. Um, it was so interesting. I chose to do exercise this morning because I'm trying to like be more, I don't know, exercise conscious. And it was so interesting because it was so humid. This is going somewhere. Because it was so humid, there was a moment where I felt like I couldn't breathe after a while. I was like, I think I need to stop. My mind is very just like, go, push, do it. Like that's how I am. And I was like, I think I need to stop and just lay down and turn the lights off and listen to some like singing bowls. And that's what I did. And the reason I bring that up and why it connects is because um, we were talking yesterday a lot about, well, we were talking about a lot of things, relationships and etc. But this aspect of surrender came up, of kind of uh, giving the issues or the problems or whatever we're going through to Krishna, to our higher power, and developing that relationship with our higher power. And a question came up yesterday where we asked everyone yesterday what we should talk about, and then we kind of didn't talk about it. And the stuff that we didn't talk about was this idea of spiritual commitment, especially when things get very hard, especially when we're going through suffering, especially when life is not cute, you know? And I brought up the exercise thing because I was just like, God, I can't like breathe right now. And then I just like the thought came to my mind. There are so many people who like suffer from this, who like feel like they can't breathe or they're suffering from some, I know, yeah, you came to my mind, Achyuta, who are suffering from some bodily thing. You know, my partner, he has like a lot of health issues, and there's so many people that have a lot of health issues. And I'm just like, yeah, how do we maintain that spiritual steadiness and steadfastness when we're going through something with this body, when we're going through something with this mind, which is a lot, you know, when some seeming reversal comes in life, or we're going through some dark period in our life, how do we stay committed? Because of course it's so, the mind will want to take us to that place of just like, I can't do this anymore. You know, I give up. Like, this is too hard. This is too much. So we're open in there. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about that, Akita.
I think that's amazing. What I also think is kind of amazing is that you actually took the time to acknowledge how you were feeling and what you were feeling. So I was in a situation where I didn't even know that I was experiencing asthma symptoms. It's like you start to adjust and you don't even know what you know. You're just like, well, it's just the way my body works. It's just the way it is. I didn't even recognize what it was that was happening. And finally, the doctor's asking, he's like, "Do you have asthma?" And I'm like, "No." And then he's checking. He's like, "You kind of do. Like that, your lungs are working at like 60, 70% on a good day." And that's not even like, he's like, "Are you feeling like you're having any issues now?" And I'm like, "No." And it's not until they give you a bit of boost and you're like, "Oh, this is what breathing is like. Oh, I see. Like these were my symptoms before. I get it." And so I feel like when we come into spiritual life, it can often be like receiving that boost of medicine. And then you start figuring out, you're like, huh, I was doing a lot of things before, and I don't know if that was great for me. And so, this idea of even spiritual commitment, when you're able to find that path that can give you that boost, for me, actually really like hardcore committing to something and saying it, that's like when the hives come out, like if I'm just doing it, I'll do it. I'll adjust. If I actually have to like sit down and say it, I'm like, oh, but for the rest of my life, my mind immediately starts like, but what makes us think that this is going to go well for the rest of our lives? What if we find out all the problems directly after we've done this? What if, like, we commit to this and then every single issue is there? And I was just talking to my sister about things like this recently, and she was like, you know what? We have to stop feeling like every decision is like life or death, end of the world. It's like done and over, and there's no fixing it, changing it, adjusting it, moving it, anything. Because in every situation, even the things that we commit to, even spiritually, there's always going to be some adjustment. No two spiritual paths are going to look the same. So committing to a spiritual path should not have us feeling like I have to follow exactly these rules and that person's way of doing them, or I'm wrong. It's so important for us to understand that it is individualized. And when we feel like we cannot breathe, that we sit down. Like, yeah, go lay down someplace. Like, don't endanger yourself. Don't abandon yourself thinking this is the only right way to reach this goal. Because what I know about God and God consciousness is that it is so unlimited. And there are unlimited varieties of ways to approach the Supreme Person. There are unlimited varieties of ways to surrender. And therefore, there are an unlimitedly variety of ways to commit spiritually. And I think sometimes that helps us with our faith, especially through rough times, by understanding that it's not a one stop shop. It's not one look for all. Everybody's going to have something a little bit different.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think the body is such an interesting, and I love that you brought that in of the doctor and the asthma. And it's like you thought like, yeah, I'm fine. No, I don't have asthma. It's like you don't realize that you're actually only able to breathe at 70%, or you're actually only functioning at 70%. And you know, in our spiritual life, it's the same exact thing. It's like we might not realize that we're actually functioning spiritually at like 50% or 60%. And in our mind, we might think that that's normal. Mm-hmm. And then you get this breath of fresh air through association of a saintly person, or through the most amazing kirtan festival that you've ever been to, or through, you know, just like a very deep heart opening conversation with a devotee, right? Or however it might come, through personal prayer, through study, through writing, whatever way that Krishna will come in. You get this breath of fresh air, and you're like, oh, it can actually, like, this is actually how it is. Like, this is actually what it's supposed to be like. And I've been operating like down over here. And I think it's really important actually, because when you are, from a spiritual point of view and from a physical point of view, like from a physical point of view, when you're functioning at 50% or 60%, like you're in danger, you know, like you are more in danger of getting sick, of, you know, falling ill or whatever. I remember I have a thyroid issue that recently has gotten better, which I'm very happy about. But I remember like 3 years ago, I was in this mood of like, I don't need the medicine, like I'm fine, you know, like with these kinds of like hormonal issues or gland issues, like you don't really like see it so much until like something happens. I was just like, I'm good, like whatever. I was like taking the pills for a while, and then I was just like, you know what, I feel good now, so I can just stop taking this. And I remember I was flying back from Mexico, and all of a sudden, like I got super dizzy on the plane, like right before it was about to take off. And I got up to go use the bathroom, and I completely passed out. Like I completely blacked out. And then I woke up in the middle of the aisle with like everyone over me, like, rah, rah, rah. And I was just like, and it was so crazy. I won't get into the details of it. I had to stay in Mexico and go to the hospital and whatever. Obviously, I'm fine. But I realized, you know, I went back to New York after I was better, and my doctor was like, why did you stop taking your medicine? And I was like, because I felt fine, you know, like everything was fine. He's like, no, you're not fine. Like, you have to take this every day until you get better. And I was like, fine. You know, I was like, okay. And and with spiritual life, the reason I bring this up is because with spiritual life, it's the same. It's like you get a taste of the medicine and you're like, oh, I love bhakti and I love Krishna and I love the devotees and I love prasad and it's all good. And then you'll like get to this point of coasting or plateauing of like, I'm at 50%, I'm at 60%. And you might think that you feel fine. You might convince yourself into thinking that you're fine. And then you realize through some sort of, obviously I gave the very dramatic example of passing out on a plane, but that it can be like that spiritually too. Like it could be very intense, a very intense reversal or a very intense thing that comes up for you. Um, and you realize like, oh crap, I was only functioning at 50, 60%. And that and the reason why this all ties in is because spiritual commitment is directly linked to that. If you are only functioning at 50, 60%, your spiritual commitment is going to be functioning at 50, 60%. And when those tough times come of, what's the word I'm looking for? Of like testing your faith. If you're only at 50, 60%, it's going to be a tough, oh my God, like, I don't know, like you're going to be like this. As opposed to if I'm functioning at 80, 90%, it's like, no, my faith is strong. I have my relationship with Krishna. And I know that this suffering or this reversal or whatever is coming in my life, like I'm I'm at peace with it to a certain extent, not saying that I'm not gonna feel the feelings of pain or feel the feelings of suffering, because of course we're allowed to and we should feel our feelings. But there's a level of kind of zooming out of the situation and having that very foundational relationship with Krishna that, he's going to take care of his devotee. Whereas if my faith is 50% and my spiritual life is 50%, my commitment is going to be like shaky. It's going to be shaky.
And I feel like the body is, like you said, is always really such a great metaphor. Srila Prabhupada uses it all the time. And that, what the metaphor that you gave is just so. Srila Prabhupada always says a perfect analogy can be taken like all the way through. You can just keep going with it. And I feel like this is one of those analogies that you can just keep going and going and going with it. And sometimes when you are functioning at 50, 60%, like you said, one, you don't even know it, but you get this medicine and you start taking it and you think, oh, everything is fine. And then it's like Srila Prabhupada would always say, it's like chanting your japa. You get japa and then you start to feel better and then you think, it's okay. It's okay. Like, I'll get by. It'll be fine. And then next thing you know, like you said, you pass out or something dramatic happens, something extreme happens. And even sometimes you can think that you're doing all the right things. And then we always attribute the success and how our bodies are feeling and how we're feeling to something else. And it's exactly like that with faith. When things are going well, we give all the credit to something else. It's my hard work. It's my family. It's the people that keep me going. And when the minute we get into the reversal, we're like, God, why are you testing my faith? And I'm like, but we didn't celebrate every good thing going, look at God boosting my faith. We were like, oh, look at my hard work paying off. Look at all this stuff that I've been doing. Finally, I'm getting what I deserve. And the minute there's something bad happening, we are so quick to, oh my God, I can't believe you test my faith like this. Like, I can't have my faith in you. And so I've been trying to practice that preemptive faith, that faith that says, okay, Krishna brought me into this situation. I'm going to have the faith that this is not him trying to slap me down to the ground. Maybe there's amazing things coming. Does it hurt? Yes. Does it feel uncomfortable? Yes. Does it feel like you get like squeezed? Do you have those periods in life where you're like, I don't even know what's happening, but I feel squeezed? And I'm trying to have preemptive faith where I don't just run off at the first sight of danger and blame everything on God. It's like, is God only God as long as God's giving you what you want? Because then otherwise we're like, well, you've got to prove to me that you're God because my life's been tough. And I'm like, what if that didn't have anything to do with God? What if your life was supposed to be more tough? And this is what devotees say, right? This is only a fraction of my karma. Imagine if it was supposed to be more tough and this is the saving. But there's that little bit of toughness there to let you know that you are operating at 50, 60%. You need medicine. And instead of taking the medicine, we're just kind of mad at the doctor. Like we don't walk into the doctor's office like mad at him, like, I can't believe that you would allow me to have a thyroid issue. And the doctor's like, I don't even know you. Like, like, what are you talking about? I don't know you. But the same way, anything happens and we are so quick to be angry with God. I'm trying to have preemptive faith that, like, wait a second, give my friend the benefit of the doubt, just like I would do with anybody else.
Mm.
I I realized some like really confusing things about people I like recently. And my mind has been giving them the benefit of the doubt ever since. Like, I'm just confused. Like, there's got to be a good reason. Like, I feel like I know them. I don't know. Maybe I got to talk to somebody else about it. I feel like I know them. I feel like I should understand them. And I don't give that same leeway to God.
Mm.
I like something happens and I'm not trying to give my friend the benefit of the doubt. I'm like, you should have been here being my order carrier 5 minutes ago so that I never even got to experience the threat of something uncomfortable.
Mm.
It's like, it's the audacity for me. How dare we?
Is definitely the audacity for me. I'm gonna read a verse, and I'm actually gonna read the translation because I know the Sanskrit, but for some reason I'm bad at the English translation because you know how the Sanskrit's like in all these orders, so I'll usually be like doing it the Sanskrit way and not the. But it's this famous verse um, of Krishna telling us how we're actually supposed to deal with this stuff. Like, what is the proper move of this suffering? And this is the tatenu kampam susamikshamano bungjana evatma kritam vipakam vidvagva purbir vidadan namaste jivetaya mukti padesadaya bhak, which is Srimad Bhagavatam,
10, 14,
Canto 11, Canto 10, chapter 14, verse 8, right?
yeah.
Okay. Here we go. Chapter 10, verse 8. No, why am I not getting this, Achita? I'm in Canto 10.
10, 14. You need
Oh, yeah,
chapter
14. I was going 10, 10.
14.
14. There we go. It's Brahma's prayers to Lord Krishna. So this verse says, it's so beautiful. My dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds and offering you respectful obeisances with his heart, words, and body, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim. And I really love this verse for a trillion reasons. We could talk about this verse forever. One of the things that I'll focus in on is this last line of the Sanskrit for Daya Bhak is that they're actually the rightful heir, that the kingdom of Krishna consciousness, like it is our right, it is our birthright to have that eternal relationship with Krishna. And I think that sometimes we forget, I can speak for myself, like I forget that, we the Maya that we speak of, the illusion that we speak of, is that we think this material world, this material body is our home. This is it, folks. And this beautiful verse is telling us, like, actually, no, like your rightful claim, like where you're supposed to be is this transcendental place, is this spiritual world, is this relationship with Krishna. So remember that you have this inherent in you, and that actually gives us the strength and the faith and the commitment to, it's telling us here to wait, to humbly wait and humbly just tolerate the sufferings that are coming to our life, which have been a lot, will continue to be a lot, and it just really, I always say this Srila Prabhupadaism, it's really that being rightly situated, right? Being situated correctly, of like understanding the function of the material world. It's like, I'm here for a reason, to learn, and there's going to be stuff coming up, there's going to be suffering, there's going to be reactions of past deeds that are going to come up, and it's like that shift in consciousness of like, can I see this as an opportunity instead of like, oh, whoa, this is happening to me. And I think that I'll end with this because I kind of want to hear your take on this, Achita, and then we have to end soon. But I think this is a touchy topic. You know, we were talking about yesterday or the day before, I can't remember, but Radhanath Swami telling you, you know, this idea of the body, you're not the body, right? It's not meant to be utilized for people that are going through suffering in the moment. And so this idea from this verse of like tolerate and be humble through all your sufferings, it's simultaneously beautiful and also simultaneously like, what, you know, like I'm in the middle of my suffering, what are you talking about? I'm just supposed to like be happy and humble and be tolerant. And so yeah, I kind of want to hear your take on that, because for me this verse has been a really really like a north star for me, you know. But I can see how for some people it might come off as like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm going through this right now.
Yeah, I've been hearing that verse my entire life. I love it now. I hated it then. I had to grow to love that verse. And it kept coming up, and the more that it came up, the more I came to love it. And like I said, I can love it now, some like what 37 years later. At the beginning I hated it because that's when it would come up. It would always come up when you're going through something. And there is this idea, it's like, what do you mean? Like, and we can't forget who Lord Brahma is speaking to. Brahma is talking to Krishna. What normally happens is people are like, you just need to be tolerant and more humble and go through your issues. And it's like, but you're the one bringing the issues on me. He's talking to Krishna. You're talking about I should just be more humble around you, which means I should let you get away with whatever you want to get away with. So it's not the same balance. We have to consider the source, consider who we're talking to when we give these prayers, like who we're supposed to be talking to and interacting with. And then also, that verse doesn't say do nothing. And I think we get caught in between these two extremes. Either we are doing everything and that's considered not humble, or we do nothing and that's our idea of humility. The idea of humility is not to be a doormat. The idea of humility is to put that benefit of the doubt in your best friend, understanding that I don't know everything. I don't know everything that's going to happen. You don't go to the doctor thinking, oh, I know everything. Otherwise, you wouldn't go to the doctor. And when we do go to the doctor thinking, I know everything, usually we walk in with this idea, it's like, dude, just give me the prescription. Like, I kind of know what's happening. Give me a prescription, and then we'll figure it out. And 9 times out of 10, that never happens. The doctor's always like, come in, sit down. We're going to do a full workup. We're going to do a whole thing. And it's like, but I have a chronic condition and I already know what my chronic condition is. And still they're going to test you. They're going to do all this stuff. And that's the material world. Even when we know what our chronic condition is, whether we are chronically unwilling to surrender, chronically unwilling to see our true position in this big, vast world, the minute we come in, they're like, we're going to test you. We're going to put you through the ringer. We're going to perform all these tests. You're like, I have a chronic condition. I already know it. I'm just going to chant my japa up. We're still going to test you. That's the material world's job. So it's going to happen. And so we have to consider also who we're talking to. Because if like, it's Bhakta Danny, like, Tate Nukampam Shishamik Shamano, and I'm like, whoa, Bhakta Danny, you are not the Krishna that Brahma was talking to. So I don't know how you can tell me, like, listen, you should be more in line with your karma. You just got to like deal with it. Be more humble. I was talking to a friend a couple of years ago and I was like, so am I Yamaraj? No, because if not, then somebody else's karma is not my business. Like, it is not my business to go and either mete out somebody's karma or deliberate on what, like, oh, well, that's just your karma. And I'm like, well, I don't know that because that is not my job. It is above my pay grade. That's somebody else's job. And unless I'm Yamaraj, somebody else's karma is not my business. I can only look at the situation that I'm in. And it is so difficult. Like you said, it can feel like that. Like I said, I've grown to love that verse now, especially after having been through things. And then looking at it the other side and really thinking, this material world is happening to everyone. There's no one that it's not happening to. But this is supposed to actually be a consolation. It's supposed to be a really sweet way of saying, look, I get it. The material world's going to do things, and it's doing things to all of us. So don't think that it is sparing anyone. It's not like, oh, everybody's going through this, like shut up and just go through it. It's like, don't think that it's sparing anyone. Everyone's having a tough time. But the good thing about this tough time is it's going to remind you of your rightful claim to mercy. This is your rightful claim. And all you have to do is go through the tough time. You're like, well, I'm already going through it. Exactly. It's already become yours. You're already prime candidate for Krishna's mercy. It's a way of saying the mercy's coming. I promise. Instead of saying like, why are you complaining? And I've been in those situations. I've had people who I was like dating or with, and I was like complaining about something, like, why are you complaining? And I was like, oh, I see, I'm never talking to you again. Not only will you never hear me complain, I'm never talking to you again. Exactly. You know, the it's like the other side of the zodiac from the Taurus is the Scorpio. And so that I'm like, yeah, no, we'll never talk again. But I do that with Krishna way too easily. And he's not actually saying that. But based on my interactions with other people, I project all of that onto the Supreme Person. You're like this and like this and like this and like this. And he's like, when did I ever do that?
Mm.
And I'm like, never, but everybody else did. And so you must be exactly like that.
Mm. Mm. So beautiful. So many amazing points. I feel like we could just continue talking about this, but we're fresh out of time. But just wanted to let you all know that a lot of my Instagram DM conversations with Achuta are just me telling her to block people. I'm just like, block them, block them. And but I really love how you brought it back to Krishna. It's like, when did he ever, you know, like when did that ever happen? And it's like, it's so really beautiful how you always bring it back to that. But yeah, humility doesn't mean being a doormat. I think that's super important. It doesn't mean not having good boundaries. And I think that yeah, we could continue talking about that. And I've also grown to love the verse. When I first heard the verse, I liked it, and then I started going through suffering, and then I didn't like it, and then I like it again now. And I think you hit upon a point that was really beautiful. And I'll say this last thing before we hand it over to Kimberly, is that this is Krishna's promise. You know, just like at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, this is Krishna's promise. And when we're going through those tough times, we have to remember that Krishna promises us things various times in the Gita and the Bhagavatam. And we just have to remember that, you know, like in those dark moments where it feels like no one's listening, where it feels like I want to give up, like we have to really, you know, come to these verses and remember that Krishna's making a promise to us, which is, oh my God, it's gorgeous. God's making a promise to us. It's beautiful. Okay, Kimberly, what do you got for us?
Thank you. Today I have find a path that gives you a boost of medicine and continue to take that prescription. No spiritual path looks the same. God and God consciousness is unlimited. So there are unlimited ways for us to approach God. And we all go through tough times, but that just means Krishna's mercy is coming. And it's our birthright to have an eternal relationship with Divinity.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Achyuta, do you have any final takeaways?
I just feel like for anybody going through anything, I feel like the tougher the time, the more mercy that is coming.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, I think mine will also be that, just to anyone listening out there, if you're going through a tough time, just know that like we are with you, and that more than we, Krishna is with you, God is with you, you know, and that mercy is coming, and know that to be true. And I always, that's something I always tell myself, you know, it's like when I'm going through the tough times and I feel very alone, because when you're going through tough times, that's the main thing, you feel alone. And I have to remind myself, like, I'm not alone. Like, I'm never alone. I always have that relationship. And this is like, something's coming. I can feel it. Thank you all so much for your beautiful, beautiful presence. Our live studio audience, Kimberly and Lane, and Leishwari in Brazil, and Dana and Martha, and Irenka in Washington Square Park, Vidya, Himalata in Argentina, And Rini, thank you all so much for your beautiful presence, and for anyone listening to the recording. We're here every day, and we will see you tomorrow. Thank you so much, everyone, and be well. Bye.